Doesn't help at all.
I wonder what glasses would look good on me because I have no idea. So I have
Here's what I would look like if this was helpful at all.
cross-eyed.
Goodbye.
Janet, you look like you owned 14 cats right there.
Yeah,
just saying.
I have
I look like a cat
because
lady.
I have to have 3 different pairs of glasses. I have a variety. I have a very thin pair that are my readers, and then I have a pair that look like this on the way that are my computer glasses.
Did you get any birth control glasses? Those are the fun ones.
What?
Birth control glasses, the real big ones.
Why are they birth control?
That's what they're called, birth control glasses.
Oh,
because no one's going to sleep with you if you're wearing them.
I don't think anybody.
That used to just be glasses. Am I right, everyone?
What? 4 eyes?
You know,
Hey,
I don't feel Bob.
everybody.
I don't feel Bob. Whoops.
I don't feel Bob
I don't
either.
feel bad about Bob having glasses because he made fun of me for years about having glasses.
You know what? I was when I started having trouble. Hey, chat. When I started having trouble and I had to go get glasses, I'm like, well, I deserve this. No problem. Go get glasses. I wasn't mad about having to get glasses. I'm mad about having to own 3 pairs of glasses to still be able to sometimes see in some certain circumstances. Like I thought I could just put on a pair of glasses and be able to see everywhere.
Yeah.
That's from the military. What's from the military?
Birth control glasses.
Oh.
It is?
Huh.
That's so specific.
Lilius loves men in glasses. As a woman in glasses, maybe. All I heard is that she loves me. Birth control glasses. This is my birthday. Can I get a shout out? Hell
Whose
yeah,
birthday
Rachel.
is it?
Happy birthday yesterday, Rachel
Happy
Chastain.
birthday, Rachel. As Bob coughs on me.
Yeah. Bob got his glass. No, these are listen, Brittany. If you're not in if you're in the Patreon, when you listen to the pre-show hour, there's a solid 30 minutes on my ordeal with glasses.
Only talk about glasses, and we only talk about Bob's glasses. Yeah. That's what we talked about.
I'm back to my Amazon readers, waiting on 2 more pairs of prescription glasses to come in.
I checked emails. I wrote people back.
When
I had a fun Patreon. That's what I was doing during Patreon when you were discussing your glasses when I was not paying attention to you in the slightest. Then I started interrupting because that was way funnier to me.
Fucking kid. I need $30 for a prom ticket.
Too bad.
You have to buy tickets to your prom?
Yeah. You didn't?
No.
We always had to buy a ticket.
Oh, no. No, you get to go to your prom. There shouldn't be a financial
barrier to entry
for your prom. That's crazy.
Yeah, we always had to. I still remember it was $20 when I was in high
school. Whoa. No. Cut to somebody from my high school is watching this and they're like, of course we had to buy tickets. You just forgot.
It was the 90s, so your date probably bought it for you.
I didn't have a date. I mean, I went to someone else's prom, so maybe they did, but I did. I'm positive I would not have gone to my prom on principle because already I was like, sure, I'll go to our prom. Stupid.
Did you go to your prom?
Yeah, I went to my prom with like 2 or 3 girlfriends, and there's just no way we would have bought tickets. I just know we wouldn't have because we were already like, I guess we'll stop by. We're cool.
Grayson
we're wearing combat boots with our dresses.
Bought tickets too. Amy said we had to buy tickets in the 90s. Bonnie says yes, you have to buy tickets. Erica says prom tickets were $50 each at her school.
Erica, we were just talking.
I'm gonna have to. I'm gonna text someone. I've got to text someone.
And we have a fun idea for Obsessed Fest, so be ready.
Yeah. My prom was in 2000, $20 too. I think we're going to call you wrong, Janet. You were wrong about.
I went to prom once, just once. Somebody else's prom, not mine.
Bella and I bullied Quentin into asking a girl to prom on Friday or whatever day, Monday, someday this week. His prom, again, my kid, prom is Saturday. Friday, he's like, I need to go to get a tux. I'm like, what? Thankfully, apparently now they can do it in a couple of days. But it used to be you needed a couple of weeks. I'm like, you tell us 6 days before prom you need a tux. 2004, $80 in their school. Rachel says we had to buy tickets. Amanda did not go to prom. Michelle and Amanda, that's less than helpful in our debate about whether or not you had to buy tickets. Michelle bought tickets for mine too.
That's a different Michelle W, by the way. We had this discussion last week.
Yeah, well, I saw the picture and I know what your wife looks like. It's not her.
This one spells her name wrong.
Yeah.
Even though that's the way to spell Michelle.
Everybody except
Everybody except for my wife.
All right. I texted my friend who will 100% remember that.
I guarantee you had to buy tickets to prom. That's how they pay
God,
for
I
it.
just can't imagine.
How they pay for it.
Maybe I'll ask my dad.
He paid for it. Your dad paid for it. Was your dad your date?
Go to hell. My dad taught at the school I went to, so I thought he would maybe know if, like, he would remember if there were.
I think go to hell was a little harsh there.
About dating my dad?
No, it wasn't.
I don't think it was
It wasn't an incestual thing. It was a loser thing. Like that was the joke.
Yes. She got real defensive on that
Yeah,
one.
she did. She said go to hell and she meant it.
Yeah.
Was your dad your date? Wink, wink.
No, that would have been a different case. That would have
I
deserved a
understand.
FU. Joanne paid $50 a piece back in 1995.
Wow.
Yeah,
How do kids get money like that?
our parents.
I don't have $50 right now. This is
Teresa had to
bullshit.
ride the bus to prom.
I mean, I went to a public high school. I'm not saying like we had so much money we wouldn't have had to charge. I thought because we had like that we were like at public high school and there plenty of lower income families and stuff like that we would have never had to charge people. That seems so
Brittany saying
prohibitive.
that I should look into progressive lenses. Again, Brittany, if you see the Patreon pre-show on Friday, you'll hear that one of the thrice pair of glasses that I have are in fact progressive lenses.
Jennifer, I need more information about going to a tiny boarding school in Rome and the school rented out a disco. Everyone went and had 2 free drinks.
Oh yeah,
That's
'cause it's-
amazing.
Yeah, Europe.
I fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
Brittany,
Yeah,
don't
so high
worry.
school
He's
we
looking
found
into
out-
progressive lenses. I think he's getting it.
We found out that like people don't, at least my son doesn't like, he's never asked a girl because it just kind of came up in conversation. that
Your
he's-
son also says bruv.
He's about to graduate, that he has, and he's always had a girlfriend, but he has never had a girlfriend from his school. And he was talking about this girl, just friends they were just chatting with. And I'm like, well, why didn't you ask her to prom? He's like, I can't do that. She knows me and she knows people I know.
The real Napoleon Dynamite case where he like pulls out a picture out of his wallet from a catalog. He's like, this is my girlfriend.
No,
She's a model.
he crafted a text message to see if she wanted to go with him, and she said no. She didn't.
Okay.
She's already going with someone else. Also, it sounds like just as a friend, but
She said, no.
yeah. But we had him convinced, like, dude, she'll totally go with you. You sure? Yeah. It was not the case. It did not check out.
Oh,
How
well.
many people are you texting to ask about this?
I just texted Sarah.
Her date.
Those of you that are in the chat, we're going to start the show here pretty soon. Last week we talked about the whole super chat thing. I think I have that. Don't hit it now. I mean, you're welcome to hit it if you want to. But do you see in your chat an option to do a super chat? I'm looking at yours, Zach, and I don't know how it works on a
I don't
computer.
see a super duper chat.
Scroll down on that screen where you're not. Subscribe. Yeah, see that little dollar sign under
Ching ching.
Yeah. So yeah, underneath where you
Oh.
would type in a chat, you can hit super chat. And when you do that, you can make a donation to the show, and then your chat or question will get highlighted for us. So what we're gonna do, so anytime through the pre-show, through the show, if you have something that you really want us to respond to, and it doesn't have to be anything show related, 'cause we're gonna do this after we're done recording the podcast. At the end of the show, we're gonna turn the recorder off, and then we'll have a super chat session where we'll go through those super chats. Please hit send it. Oh god.
I took the slider all the way to the right just
Yeah.
to see what the value
Whoa.
was.
Apparently the max is $500. Oh, did it send?
What?
Did you just hit send?
I hope not. No.
Oh, you guys
damn.
are already doing it. Oh man, that's so nice.
Oh,
You were so
okay.
excited that I just sent you a lot of money.
Yeah, I thought Zach just accidentally sent me $500.
He was so
Is it that
excited.
easy? I don't feel like does
It's pretty easy.
YouTube have my payment info just ready to go?
It's like, well, I know on the iPhone it's like connected through Apple, like you can just do like Apple Pay. I don't know how it all works through there, but thank you for those of you that have sent the $1. Looks like Mary and Brian and Teresa all sent $1 or $2. And so what you can do is
Thank you, Jim. If you saw my 3-gun videos on YouTube, those aren't even good ones. So thank you. I didn't even know they were still on there.
What you can do is you can type in a question with your super chat and then see how those get highlighted for us. Then we can scroll through when we're done. and hit those super chats. And of course, it just another little fun segment at the end. And then also, of course, it helps us out a little bit if you guys send any of those little donations.
Oh, these are super.
That's cool.
So should we start the show here? Jennifer would like Zach to accidentally send her $500.
Yeah, no
Mary said
kidding.
it through Apple Pay. That's how they do it. All right.
Oh, okay.
Super easy. Super question is, will Bob refund Zach? Absolutely not, Amy. But I'm if he had sent that 500,
no
that would be my
circumstances.
500, and it wouldn't even be because I really want the $500. It would be because I want Michelle.
She would be so fucking upset.
I want you to have to deal with Michelle and go home and tell her that you accidentally sent me $500.
Oh, she would be so mad. This would be
Right.
a problem. I would be sleeping on your couch tonight.
Oh, wait, this may backfire on me then.
Mm-hmm. I could sleep on well, you don't have the couch in the studio anymore. Like when I came in after our one comedy show and Mike was covered up in the sleeping bag the wrong direction.
Yeah.
On the sleep. He was on the couch, Janet, in a sleeping bag, but it was feet hanging out of the sleeping bag.
Aww.
He was buried, cocooned headfirst into the sleeping bag.
Cute.
On the couch. It wasn't cute.
Oh,
it was
thanks, Rachel
hungover.
and Bonnie and Jenny, everybody. Rachel just sent us a $5 super chat to say thanks for the B-Day shout out. Don't spend it all in one place. Thank you. And
ching, ching, ching,
yeah, see how that's like up at the top there?
No, I wasn't paying any attention to you.
Yep. Okay, so we should get this show on the road. Everybody that are in there, how many people do we got watching?
I don't know how we operate this. 11. No,
that can't be right. 111.
I don't.
Instead of 111 people are watching.
Where do you see that at? 112.
112 people are watching. How many of you are hitting the like though? Looks like only 11 people are smashing the like. That can't be right. You son of a bitch.
I hit the dislike button.
Yes, everybody, real quick, pop that like button and let's get this party started. You ready to get this party started, Janet?
Let's get this party started.
Out?
Wait, we're going to let dogs out, but Valeria wants an update on possible kittens. Do you want to do that in show or pre-show?
You can do it in show.
Okay, great.
Because I'm sure more than just Valeria wants to know that.
I avoided asking about it until we went live.
We're really going to talk about kittens on the show?
It'll be 30 seconds.
Well, it's not. Nothing's 30 seconds with you. There's never been a time in your life that anything's been 30 seconds with you.
Let me ask the boss real quick. Let me check. Boss, do you want to talk about the kid? No, the boss says, yeah, we're going to do it.
Show. Alrighty.
Let's look around. Who's in charge here? Look at who's picture. Well, Jimmy Pardo reference there.
There's a lot of pictures on the wall.
Let's look around.
I don't have a single picture in here. Kind of hurts my feelings.
No, neither does Janet. I have the one of Janet out there, but because
that's more pictures than you have of me.
I have lots of pictures of you on my phone. I just haven't printed them out. I gotta stare at your mug every day.
It's true.
All right, here we go. We're gonna go.
That conversation took longer than 30 seconds, Zach.
I haven't even said anything about the kittens yet.
No, I'm blaming Zach for that conversation being over 30 seconds.
It's fine.
All right. Thanks everybody for joining us today. We've got a big group in the chat on YouTube, and we've got a ton of listener questions about this week's episode, the probable cause episode. A couple little housekeeping things up front before we get into that. Just letting you guys know where things are going. I have made contact. Nicole Carpenter is the person that is going to come on the show and is going to present the argument for the Robert and Christian's guilt, and we're going to have not a debate but a discussion about that. We actually booked it. We were going to record this coming Tuesday for next week, but this week, so as I mentioned this week, I'm going to start covering the closing arguments. They're very long, and I'm going to get through the state's closing this week, but I still need to go through the defense closing and then the rebuttal, and there's no way I can get that all done in 1 week. I asked Nicole if she wanted to just go ahead and come on after the state or wait until after we've heard the rest of the trial. She said she's in no hurry, so we're going to do that. So it'll be a couple of weeks, but just know that's in the works, and we are communicating, and that'll be coming up very soon. Other bit of housekeeping. A few people asked about the kitten situation. I don't remember if I've talked about it on the show, definitely in our Patreon hour that we do every week, that we have a garage cat that has...
This all counts. It's all counting towards 30 seconds.
Well, no, because he threw me. Now I got to start over, and it's gonna be all fucked up.
Oh.
You ruined. Now you're gonna make it so hard on Kelly to edit this.
5, 4, 3, 2.
I'm not talking.
1. Okay. So that all counts.
Now I got to try to figure out how to make that a clean edit for Kelly.
Just start over.
We have a garage cat that last fall just appeared into our garage and had kittens. And then I spent many months trying to get that cat fixed. Couldn't get an appointment. Had one last week. Was pretty sure she was pregnant. That fell through. We talk about that whole story on the follow-up. But the answer is she had kittens. We have another pile of fresh kittens. So if you're anywhere near the Southwest Michigan area and you want a kitten, we'll have it about 6 to 7 weeks. We'll have some available for free. And with that, I promise under 30 seconds, and I'm at 33, so we're going to move on to the next topic.
Did she have him in the same spot as before?
Exact same spot.
Oh, she's got a little spot.
Yep, she's the vet had me kind of convinced that maybe she wasn't pregnant. Maybe I should bring her in anyway, because maybe she was just, there was something wrong with her.
Yeah,
and then the whole vet thing fell through, and then all of a sudden she disappeared for 2 days and stopped eating her food, and then reappeared much skinnier with meow meow coming from behind the steps.
Kind of crazy to me that it went from last week she might be pregnant to now you have kittens.
I know.
That escalated
I know
quickly.
that's a lot to take on, and you were trying to keep that from happening.
I love a kitten.
Kittens are
I love
real
a cat.
cute.
I don't care for either one of them being in my garage.
I know.
But actually, I don't mind the cat in the garage. The kittens are the problem. So hopefully we'll be able to get rid of those. Have no idea how many there are. They're tucked too far back. Looks like maybe 4 this week's episode. Probable cause.
Great.
We can get back into the important stuff. And Janet, what do you think about the probable cause episode?
I thought it was really interesting. A thing that I had wanted to do, and I so wish that I had time to do it. And I was sort of fantasizing, and maybe someone did this in the Facebook, posted something like this, and I just didn't see it because it wasn't part of the follow-up. But I wish that I could have had time to sort of write a probable cause affidavit with a few facts changed or omitted the way we see it happen in Leclerc's for someone else as a sort of exercise to say, here's what, if you wanted to write a probable cause affidavit for Jacob Santiago and Austin's place, for example, here's all the things you could say about that. And then you could just tweak a couple of extra things to make it seem even more damning. And what would that look like? And I thought that would be just really interesting, because I feel like it could be pretty compelling if you had the freedom to sort of tweak a couple of things.
That would be interesting. That's a really interesting, because as you're saying that, I'm thinking, could you write one with true facts?
Right.
For, say, Jacob, and I guarantee you could write one for Jacob. And I'm not saying Jacob.
You could match fact for fact. I believe you could match fact for fact the true accurate things that were in the affidavit, not even counting the things that were inaccurate.
Yeah, like you could with Jacob, you could say that he said that he was out of town at this time, and his phone records don't match when he said he went out of town. He neglected to mention they broke up. They broke up 2 days before, or 3 days before, and his phone didn't have any service during that time. You could absolutely write one and get it for that.
Mm-hmm.
And you could probably do it with Javier too, if you omitted some things,
right.
If you just, as Leclerc did, like if you just failed to mention that his phone was pinging in tower down in the valley during the time of the murders,
right.
You could do it. But yeah, that's a really interesting point.
And again, no one's saying that means that they had anything to do with it. I'm purely saying that as what information, if you want to convince someone of something, what information do you use, not use, and how do you, change? How do you drive the narrative in the direction that you want to?
So I went a different route this week. I listened to the episode twice. The first time I listened to the episode, just outright listened to what everything was said. The second time I listened to the episode, tried to keep an open mind and tried to ignore everything you said in the episode, based on I want to hear what was presented to the judge.
Sure.
And honestly, if you try to keep an open mind and forget everything we've learned this season, I understand why he issued the search warrant.
Of course.
It seems very selling. I mean, and that was eye-opening to me to think about that, where now we know some of the things that were presented in it were just flat out false. But at the time, and just seeing what was presented, it makes perfect sense that they presented a search warrant.
I don't fault the judge for approving the warrant based on what Leclerc wrote. There was certainly, and mind you, the burden that he has to reach there is just probable cause. He doesn't have to prove them guilty. He's just saying there's enough reason to believe they could have been involved. So I want this search warrant to get the evidence to see if they were involved. And the way it was written, 100%. Like, sadly, when you actually go through it, you find out that, a lot of the stuff that was in there was just not true. And certainly a ton of things were omitted.
Yeah. Well, we have a ton of questions. One of the things that I think it would be nice to start with, if you feel like you can expound just a little bit more on what we've already talked about with probable causes and with search warrants and how to get them. We did have a note from Aaliyah saying, for non-Americans or for lay people or for newbies, could you explain a little bit more what the affidavit is and what that process looks like when you're a police officer?
Yeah. So in order to, like, you can't, in the United States, you can't just go into someone's house and search it. You can't take evidence. You can't force someone to give a DNA sample or to give their fingerprints without a court order signed by a judge. And so the way that process, and there has to be, constitutionally, there has to be a good reason or probable cause for them to sign that order. Like, you can't just go to a judge and be like, hey, I want to take a DNA sample from Zach. Can you give me a court order to do that? The answer is no. It's an invasion of his privacy. I have to show that there is probable cause that he committed a crime. 1, 2, there is probable cause that the thing that I am requesting could prove whether or not he did do it. Those are kind of the two elements. That's why you see a lot of the language. If you actually read the PCA, you see a lot of the language where, I know that people tend to keep things from the crime at their house, and therefore I think if we do the search, we might be able to find the murder weapon. Or we found DNA samples in certain places, and so I want to get their DNA to compare to that to see if they were involved. But the key to all of that, before you get into why you think the evidence that you're trying to go after will help, first you have to convince the judge that there is some reason to believe that they have some involvement before they do it. Otherwise, you run into privacy and constitutional violation issues. And so
you don't know who the judge is going to be, or do you? Like, is it just sort of like this is going out to a judge? You're not sure who's going to be the person who sees that
they'll
probable
know
cause?
because this PCA weirdly was filed at 2 a.m. If you read the time on it, it was at 2 a.m. when it was filed. So and that could be, maybe that was the shift Leclerc worked. Maybe that's just when he finished, whatever it was. But I believe that they they'll know which judge is on duty right now, because there'll be a judge that their job is to take that stuff while they're on duty to look at those affidavits and sign those warrants and things like that.
And so that can happen. That's anytime at night. There will always be someone that is available.
Yeah. We've seen it on TV, and from what I understand from detectives that I know, that is pretty accurate, where they'll be like, oh, we're gonna have to wake the judge up to get this thing signed.
Well, you talked to an officer in the in-between season, a local officer who had been convicted of he was convicted and put in prison for lying, and he would talk about calling the judges and having them and waking people up and having them.
Yeah, exactly. So. Yeah, so they'll be now. Would they do that to go get a DNA sample? No, that can in a case that's a year old. No, that can wait till morning. If you're dealing with, like, say this was 2 days after this crime occurred, and you're worried that there's these violent criminals out there, and you find some big piece of evidence that you think, okay, we think this is the violent murderer right here, that might be a wake the judge up and get this done. But yeah, mostly I don't know why this was filed at 2 o'clock in the morning, to be honest. But anyway, to get back to the question, yeah, so they just have to present supposed to be factual evidence to the judge that for these reasons, I believe there is a likelihood that these people are responsible for this crime, but I'm not going to be able to prove it unless I get their DNA and fingerprints and search their houses. So I'm asking you to do that. That's the process.
Okay. So you made a couple of comments in the episode itself where you were sort of pointing out that not only were potentially facts or potential facts about Robert maybe tweaked or misinterpreted or mischaracterized, but that there were also other people that were part of this description that Leclerc is giving to the judge to sort of give a context of like, hey, you're hearing about this whole thing for the first time. So here's this, here's that, here's who Javi is, here's who Jacob is. And that you said, it seems like there were sort of things were sort of whitewashed, or there were things that were probably intentionally omitted. And so Autumn says, is it typical in a PCA for a search warrant to detail like other suspects? Like, is he beholden to the judge to give other viable suspects?
No. So
anyway,
what I found odd about it was that he took the steps to bring those people up. So the probable cause affidavit is what evidence is there that there's probable cause that Robert and or Christian were connected to this. So like there's no reason to bring Jacob up at all. You know what I mean? So what I found odd about it was that he took the steps to say, and I don't remember the exact verbiage of it, but it said that Rebecca was dating Javier's current boy, her current boyfriend was Javier's cousin Jacob. Like that didn't need to be there at all. So then it's like, so why did you choose to put it in there and then lie? He knew not only that it was not her current boyfriend, that they had broken up, he also knew that Jacob had lied about it. Not that any of that had to be part of this, but it was what the strange thing was that he brought some of that stuff in and then whitewash it. It seemed to me that it was like, not only is there probable cause for these guys, but there's probable cause that it was them and excluding all others. Like essentially, like it couldn't be anybody else. It had to been then. She's got her boyfriend here. She's got this person and this person. They were all, they were all clear. The only person, I think that was part of his strategy. And I'm not a lawyer. Or a cop, but to me, the way I read it was like that was part of the strategy because it was pretty thin case as it was to be like, and couldn't have been anyone else. Anybody else that was closer to her was already cleared for whatever these reasons were.
Like a sort of don't worry. Any question you might have had about another romantic partner or the person who was kind of at the center of the information we got, we already cleared them. I'm going to mention them to show you how confident I am that we did
some
that
of them
job,
needed
that
to
we
be
did our work.
like you couldn't get through this without Javier,
right?
Because Javier was a source of information. Javier is the reason they knew about that. Well, actually, that's not true. I mean, Javier did tell Leclerc, but Robert had come in on his own also and told him about the plan for a hike. But I don't think you could get through it without Javier. But like the weird mention of Jacob to me was odd. Like there was no reason for it. It was to me, it was just like he just put it in there to make sure like this isn't a problem. Don't worry about if there's another guy because this guy's not a problem.
Okay. Teresa had said regarding the actual copies that we can look at on the website, if you knew what the handwritten initials and dates on the files meant.
I don't. Zach's got it pulled up, so I can look at them, but I don't remember what those were. That's probably where, like at the top there, that's probably from like the clerk's office when they get filed. So like it has to be like signed by, stamped and signed that it was like received by the clerk's office when it was filed by the clerk, things like that. So I assume that's what all that is.
Yeah, I would guess that's what that is.
And then of course the signatures by the judge approving the order.
Gotcha. Teresa says when a case like this is picked off the shelf for a cold case team, is there a standard process on where to start? Are they supposed to just completely kind of go back to the very beginning?
I don't think there's a standard practice. I think I don't know, but I would imagine that they would take the case and read the full case file and see like where did things get left off? Why did they hit it? In this case, they would see, okay, so when Leclerc shelved it in 2007, why did he give up on it? What happened? Then you could backtrack and see, now you would think maybe it was like, well, he really thought it was Robert and Christian to the point where they executed the search warrants and interviewed them and took their DNA and all this stuff. And then after receiving all that, that's when he dropped it, when he suspended the investigation. So maybe he was barking up the wrong tree, might have been a place where you might want to thought to go, but it seems like they just picked it up and were like, well, he must have been on the right track. Let's just keep going down this track.
Okay. But just to come back to, I see Montana in the chat kind of talking about like this idea of you pointing out in the episode that Leclerc did have the sector data. He references it in the affidavit. And at that time, the sector data is also being used as a pointing towards guilt. If you were a cold case investigator and you read that probable cause, you would say, well, here are some of the things we definitely know we need. First of all, we absolutely need those cell records. We see that this is damning information. We see that the cell sector is damning information. We got to, those would be, one would assume, priorities. Is it possible that the cold case team did look through the file to try to find that sector data so that they could show just how damning it was, and then they just couldn't find it? And so then they were like, no, we don't have it. And so it's not that they aren't hiding the fact that the sector data, when actually analyzed, points in the other direction, that it was just an accident, or that it was just they just couldn't find it, so they didn't pursue it.
Look, anything's possible, but no. Like there's no way they.
I'm getting mixed signals from you.
Yeah. I mean, I can't say no, that's impossible. Anything's possible. Yeah. But to me, what we see in this PCA confirms what I said before, when there were people out there like, your conspiracy theory, and you don't know that they actually saw it. You don't know that they actually analyzed it. You don't know that they had it interpreted. And then we see, yes, they did. They got it. Willis got it. He talked to the person from Verizon about what it meant, relayed that to Leclerc. Leclerc took in that information and then put it in his probable cause affidavit. 100%. He had the sector data. They had it analyzed. There was, not only was he copied to it, but it was discussed and relayed to him what they thought it meant. And he put it in there. And then he goes up on the stand and says, no, we never had it. I never got it. I never had anybody get it on my behalf. I don't know. Like, there's
right.
no way. And there's no, and I don't think there's any, especially because Leclerc, in a lot of ways, to me, seems like he was just not great at his job. And he also was cutting some corners. Bodmer, to me, seems like he was get a conviction at all costs crook. Like he was lying and twisting and manipulating. Like, we hear what he, his interview with Sarah Honecker and how he tried to twist that. We hear what he did with Chad Burnham, who goes from the only gun Robert might have had at the time of the crime was maybe a shotgun, because there was a shotgun out there. No, he definitely didn't have a handgun. Gets that all the way to, oh, he for sure had a Glock at this, before the murders. Bodmer's a snake, in my opinion. Leclerc's an idiot, in my opinion. I mean, if you wow, that's my opinion. And anyway, but there's no way that Bodmer and the rest of the cold case unit looked at this file, looked at that probable cause affidavit.
I mean, that's an important document. We can agree that the PCA,
yes, it's a hugely
that's an important document. That is not like, well, we got this, and this, but wait, quick, let me look at this other thing. That seems like a hugely important document in the process of this entire case.
It was made very clear that a big part of the reason they thought there was probable cause when the thing was shelved, when the investigation was shelved, was because of that sector data.
There's so much cell phone stuff being discussed in the affidavit.
So the idea that they just didn't know it was there, no way. And the fact that Leclerc gets on the stand and says that they never got it, and he never got it, and that he doesn't recall ever telling anybody else to get it, that is coaching for, in my opinion, that is 100% coaching from the district attorney. He knew those questions were coming up, and he knew how he was going to answer them. Because it couldn't be clearer that he had them.
And so the defense technically had the opportunity to pull that PCA from discovery and say, I understand you're saying this. Do you see right here that you yourself wrote this PCA calling out the sector data, calling out that you had a conversation about it, and this is a huge issue?
Well, I don't think that the defense knew what, because they hadn't seen it, remember?
I'm going to put my hand down now.
Yeah. And well, I don't think that the defense knew they hadn't seen it. And he doesn't say sector data in there.
Okay.
He just, like, you have to put this puzzle together, because what he says is that Willis, or Wills, the detective that we know pulled it, his only involvement in the case it was this.
Right.
He wasn't doing anything, or earlier in the case. And he says that he spoke with this Joseph Murphy from Verizon. We see that Joseph Murphy was contacted before by Bump and Sarah. Bump talked to him in September of 2006, but not Wills. So we know that Wills is the one that filed the subpoena for the sector data. We know that he's the one that talked to them. We know that he copied it, and we know that when he says that based on the cell phone records that it's unlikely that the court person, I don't remember what his title was, told him it's unlikely that they were north of Tower 745. The only way they could come to that conclusion is the fact that they hit 745 Sector 2, which is the one that points south of the tower. But now imagine you had never seen the sector data. You don't know who Wills is. You know, it wasn't like it just jumped out of the page.
Right.
Like that. Because we've seen it, we're able to decipher what he was talking about.
Okay. Understood. Okay. So moving on to Sarah's question. Sarah says, was the PCA we heard related to the search warrant and the DNA swabs?
Yes.
Okay. And lots, I saw this in the chat as well. Chat, I was not ignoring you. Just know that many people also put this into the Facebook follow-up, like Emmett and Rachel and a couple of Jennifers, Courtney, Bridget. I'm going to read Emmett's. But Emmett says, obviously the chance of LeClaire facing any consequences for lying in the affidavit is laughable. And I know you're not a lawyer, but is it possible that evidence obtained from a warrant issued under false pretenses could be thrown out on appeal? If so, what items of evidence do you think could potentially get thrown out? And why didn't, and Jason also said, why didn't the defense use this in an appeal?
So the answer is it could. And as you astutely pointed out, I'm not an attorney, but I've been somebody had just recently on the fan page posted an article where appeals were being won and evidence was being thrown out because of exactly this. Because they found out that there was misinformation in the affidavit for the search warrant that obtained the evidence. And so it can come into, they call it fruit of the poisonous tree, right? So the only reason that they knew that Christian's DNA was on the business card was because they got his DNA as a result of this warrant. So it would, I doubt it's even probable this would be the case, because judges will always, especially when they already got a conviction, will find plenty of other reasons to say, well, they could have done this or they could have done this. But based on my understanding of the letter of the law, if he had lied in the affidavit to get the search warrant, then that could mean that the search warrant then becomes invalid, which would then mean any evidence obtained from the search warrant would be thrown out. So then we go back to, we hadn't even covered it yet, but in 2016, the search warrant then after the arrest, when they go back and they try, which or even the warrant for the arrest, all of that contained as part of that probable cause evidence that was obtained from this probable cause affidavit, so that if that didn't exist, they wouldn't get it. So you see what I mean? It can, you can back it up and say everything they got. The problem is they didn't get anything. The only thing they got from this,
that was the question, was the DNA,
Christian's DNA and Christian's fingerprint, which later on the third analyst to look at it claimed that Christian's fingerprint matched the business card. So technically speaking, the way I understand it, yes, there is a world where those two things could be thrown out, and then that could overturn the conviction. What would end up happening then was they would find a new way to write a probable cause affidavit, and they would get it, and then they would pull it, and then they would try them again, which I would love to see happen, because knowing what we know now, there's no way they win this trial.
But I think I have to go on with you with that, though, is they didn't find much from this, because a lot of this information that they used as a crux of their case they already had.
Yeah.
So I don't know that it changes the opinion of the court.
Well,
not enough for a judge to overturn it.
The big thing to me would be, imagine if they went to trial and they did not have Christian's fingerprint or DNA on that business card. In a trial that had 10 days of deliberation before they finally got their guilty verdict, and that was with his DNA and fingerprints being on an item that was at the crime scene area, when he's a spot that he said he had never been, take that away, and I think it could change the outcome of the trial, and therefore could overturn it. Now, again, all that being said, I don't think that's probably very likely to happen here.
Right.
But it's possible.
Okay.
That makes
Okay.
sense?
Sure.
Yeah, and shout out to Birthday Rachel, who also asked about, what evidence was actually used and that was actually fruitful within this, and you've answered that. So thanks for that.
Well, and you're going to hear in this week's episode too, there was the prosecutor in his closing arguments just took some big swings at some stuff that means nothing that he out to mean something.
Mm, I'm really looking forward to those closing arguments. And I know a lot of people are too. Kate H, I know you've been with me on this I'm like, give me those arguments. I want to hear what the actual attorneys wrapped up with, and opened with, to be honest with you. I would also love to hear that. But so Derek says, not a question, but a comment. I don't think we can hang our hat on the Verizon court order compliance employee not being a tower engineer. Title doesn't always equal skill set. For example, a podcast host talking about arson investigations sounds strange on the surface if someone doesn't know your background. Not saying the Verizon guy is a tower engineer, but we can't immediately dismiss it. Regardless, great episode. What a clown show they were running.
Yeah, and that's fair. I mean, and we had, because somebody made a thread about this. I think listener Lynn on the fan page saying that, they think that they would have had the date. And several people chimed in who work in this field that are like court compliance officers for different companies. And also the same thing, like their job is to they're kind of a liaison to make sure that the subpoenas are responded to, they get the right information. Their job is not to understand the information. That being said, it's possible that this person came up the ranks, maybe used to be a tower engineer. That is possible. I don't think that's the case, because we would have seen them at trial probably, because they were the original ones. And so, they went with other cell phone experts instead of an expert from Verizon. But again, I think that also plays into, they didn't want the sector data coming out because again, and I know there's all these arguments about what the sector data means. Also, we talked about some of that stuff last week, but here's the thing. What was presented to the jury was that the last tower that Robert and Christian hit was the one at the Bighorn site, which is down 74. They're able to paint this picture. They hit this tower, then that tower. They're headed to the crime scene. When the truth of the matter is, the last tower that they hit was Tower 705 back in the valley. And that's what I think they didn't want to. And it could be, listen, maybe, I mentioned that, I disagree completely with what, Ed thinks is a possibility there. And Mike Dowd, our expert, concurred with that as well. But the fact is, that's very complicated stuff. Like you guys have said last week, when I get into the sector data, that some people are like, give me more. And other people are like, this is Greek to me. I don't want to hear any of this. It's complicated. So I think what the prosecution didn't want the jury to hear was that they hit this tower down here, and then they hit this tower back up here that's pointed this way, because they could make whatever inference they wanted to out of that.
Right.
But as far as is this guy in his skill set, you're right. I don't know. Maybe this person used to be. I can tell you that the position they were in is not that of a tower engineer. That's not their job, and being a court compliance officer. And I'll also point out even the way LeClaire worded it. Remember, we had said in the sector data that last call started on 745-2 and then immediately switched over to 705 sector 1. And that was kind of the big contention, because 745-2 points south. And we said, but you can be on the other side of the tower. You can be north of that sector and still catch it. But then it's going to switch to the stronger one, which is what it did.
Mm-hmm.
And then we showed, there's a million reasons. There's a million case studies out there that show that that's the case. You can get it on the other side. And even what they wrote in there was that the person, this Joseph Murphy, said that it is highly unlikely that they were north of the tower. And you can read that as being like, oh, they must have been south of the tower. But also, if you read what he's saying, he's not even saying it's impossible to be north of the tower and make that connection. They just said it was unlikely. But I think that, and I think part of the confusion why he didn't go any further with it is because they knew that it switched over to Tower 705 at that point.
Okay. I just wanted to shout out Chris in the chat, who because you've said several times over the course of the season that Leclerc shelved the investigation that was suspended. I think Chris is just wondering, like, how do we know that? Like, what does that documentation look like? Is there like a file that's like stamped, suspended as of blank day, or is it just that it doesn't seem like anything was worked on after that going forward?
No, like other documents in the file after fall of 2007 literally say suspended. The investigation is suspended on it, and then there and it is referenced a few times too. By I couldn't cite to them right now, but there's spots where Bodmer noted that Leclerc suspended the investigation. He uses the word shelved the investigation a couple times back then.
And do you feel like, I know you've said, this would be a good opportunity for him to continue to try a different direction. But is this the kind of thing that we see when police decide they found their person, even if they can't prove it? And so they just give up on everything else and say, well, now I feel like I know who did it and no one cares and I don't have enough. So I can't, I can't make an arrest. So I'm not going to work on it anymore because we all know who it is. And until we can prove it's that person, we're not going to move forward on anything.
I think that's possible. I would be, I think, pretty irresponsible at this point if that's what was going on, right? If Leclerc was like, I know it was these guys, I did the search, and then I got whatever information I got from the search, and just be like, don't have enough to prove it, and just give up. That is it possible? Yeah. Is it responsible? No. Is it likely? I don't think so. I'm thinking more likely that, and this is just my opinion, that when he did the search and they went into the house, they found the big thing is they have no way to look where he's at in 2007. There's no way to put a 40 caliber or 10 millimeter gun in their hands. Mm-hmm. No one had one. No one had access to one. They had no way. So how can so I think it's very likely he's like, I don't know. I just like threw his hands up. But again, this is my opinion, but it's like, there's some stuff that points towards them, but there's not enough to prove it was them. And maybe it wasn't them. I mean, how did they get a gun? And so he just gave up, which also isn't very responsible.
Right. Well, I guess I'm thinking about cases where we've heard, and even just in my own experience, where you hear that the cops say, oh, we know who did it, but we're never going to move forward on this case until someone says something or someone comes forward. Yeah, I feel like that's something, a refrain we hear a lot. And because of work you've done and other wrongful conviction stuff that I've become aware of over the years, that always makes me nervous because it always makes me wonder, do you know who did it? Like, are you bumped up against the edge of who did it, but you can't prove it and it's not worth investigating anyone else? Or is this like you have tunnel vision and because you can't get the evidence you want for the people you've decided who've done it, you have other cases you need to work on, so you're just not going to do anything on it?
To me, it's the latter. It's more likely the latter, that they have they have blinders on. They're convinced they've got the right people. They're unable to find proof of it. When to me, logic would tell you, well, if I'm trying everywhere and I can't find the proof, maybe it's because there is no proof. Maybe it's because, I mean, look at this case. The whole time they're sitting there with solid DNA profiles on Becky's sock that don't match them. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Go, look further into that. See if you can figure out who that is.
Yeah. We haven't talked about that DNA on the sock for a second.
I wonder too if it was suspended because they got to a point where maybe who knows what they actually thought, if they thought these guys did it or not, but they get to a point where they're like, we don't have enough evidence against these guys, but we also know that we have no leads at this point. Mm-hmm, and that's part of their botched investigation, that they didn't have any other leads to go off of. So they're like, if it's not these guys, then we don't know where to go from here, and they just let it hang.
But my issue comes back to that sock. You know what I mean? Where it's like, because they did have another lead. Like, they had DNA, and as I'm saying that, I'm trying to remember what year, if that profile came later when they got the DNA off the sock. If that's the case, that wouldn't be. But I mean, again, that's another avenue they could have gone. But say once they have, okay, we can't seem to prove a case against these guys, but we have this other DNA. that is a strong enough profile to be run through CODIS, maybe let's run through this through CODIS. Instead, they're like, we've got these guys that we're sure did it. Here's DNA. This is where we nail them. And they're like, no, it's not theirs. And they're like, oh, well, I guess we'll never solve it then. Because they're only looking, I mean, it's like they're only have those blinders on. They're only looking at one set of suspects. And that's a problem, as Jim Clemente says all the time, when you shift into a suspect-based investigation too early, when it still should be an evidence-based investigation. When you shift over to suspect-based, then you're only looking for evidence to convict that suspect.
Right. But it seemed like, I mean, he wasn't focusing on those guys for such a long time. In fact, didn't focus much on them in the beginning at all. So there was opportunities missed to either damn or clear them much, much earlier in the case. So, I mean, it seems like he was sort of, reaching out and trying to, follow whatever strings, many of which seem to involve Javier and his fascination with his sexuality. But I want to go back to the gun and this idea of the evidence, because Teresa did have a question around this shotgun that we hear about, the shotgun that his dad stored elsewhere. Was it ever recovered and looked into as a possible weapon in John's death? And could they have even determined that at all based on the fire and whatever evidence they did have? Was it just like, we'll never know which gun exactly what gun it was. We'll never know that. All we know is that it was this kind of gun.
Yeah. So with a shotgun like that, it's not like a pistol where you can match like striations from the barrel and things like that. With a shotgun, it's shooting a bunch of BBs out of it. So there's no way that you can, and you correct me if I'm wrong, Zach, but I don't think there's any way that you can like match the shot from a shotgun to a particular shotgun.
Not that I believe there is. You may be able to match wadding. They did say the wad was still in John, which is disgusting, but there's a little piece of plastic that comes out behind the pellets. You may be able to match striations on. I don't know for sure. That's something, but on the other hand of that too, a 12 gauge shotgun, and I could be wrong, is probably the most popular, most owned firearm, most readily available firearm in the United States. So just because of that, I mean, that doesn't put one and one together.
Yeah, and the fact, the only reason that we know it was a 12 gauge was because the wadding was in John. If it had just been the pellets, that could have come out of a 20 gauge, a 12 gauge, a 16 gauge. It could have come out of any shotgun. So yeah, unfortunately there was no way to tie that down. But again, they couldn't put that in their hands. They said that, that shotgun, they did own that shotgun, but his dad said that it was stored somewhere else. It was stored at another house. They couldn't even put the shotgun in his hand.
Could they have? But there wouldn't have been a utility, knowing that you can't exactly match it. The fact that it was already admitted, quote unquote, admitted to the cops that this shotgun existed and that Christian's dad knew where it is, they could have tried to include a search warrant for that random person's house. But like,
they could have
to try to actually hold the gun in their hand, to be like, this is the gun that we've all been talking about. Beyond that, we now have proven that it exists, but we still don't know if this had anything to do with the crime.
I think the best they could have done and what they should have done was investigate that further. Like, okay, so there's a 12 gauge. So he says he stored it in another house. Let's find out, where was it stored? Who else knew it was there? Let's talk to other witnesses about, they just never did it. I think the fact that there was no 40 caliber or 10 millimeter in existence anywhere in their world, it was like, oh, it doesn't matter if we can show that maybe they had access to a shotgun, because we can't put the pistol in their hand.
Right. And part of that process would probably be if John Smith said, these are the guns I have, then Leclerc could have just gone to that system that you talk about that's really only available to law enforcement to say, oh yeah, well, this all matches. Like he didn't leave out a Glock or something when he told me that he owned those guns. You would imagine that would be done, but that wouldn't be in discovery, because that's considered a privacy thing.
I don't know about that, but probably not. And certainly if he had done that, it didn't give him any fruitful results, or they would have definitely wrote about that, you'd see that in the report or in the trial or somewhere that, we know that he did have a certain gun registered in his name. Real quick, somebody just in the chat mentioned Delphi, and I just remembered something, maybe reminded me of something that I wanted to say in the housekeeping section. Our buddy Nick from True Crime Garage just released his first book. So for anybody, if anybody is interested in the Delphi case, the book is, I believe it's called The Delphi Murders. Look up Nick Edwards, but I believe it's called The Delphi Murders by Nick Edwards. Nick is just NIC. But the book is out and available, and it's also on Audible, not read by Nick, but the guy who reads it. It sounds like Robert Stack. He's a very, very good narrator. It's great. I downloaded it on Saturday, and I've already listened to the entire book. So just want to show that, Nick doesn't even know I'm doing this, but just so you guys know, if you're interested in the case, Nick wrote a really good book on it. It's out now. You can get it on Audible or anywhere you get your books.
Great. I also recommend the podcast Admissible. It's really, really good, and it's infuriating and talks about people wrongfully convicted on bad evidence and a person who is a bad actor working for the state of Massachusetts.
Who's the host of that? I've never heard of that one.
I don't know. I don't know the host name, but my buddy Ellen Horn, who used to produce on Radio Lab, produced it, and it's really good. Admissible. It's just very interesting. It's very much up all of our alley in terms of like, here's how people get convicted on stuff that is appalling when you find out what's happening behind the scenes. Okay, I want to move on to Teresa's question. What was in the PCA for the subsequent arrests?
I'll have to. I've read through it a long time ago, but I'll break it back down. But it's a lot of the same, and then the DNA and the fingerprint stuff that we got after that. But I'll go through that. I probably won't do a full episode on it, but I'll go through and bullet point it next time we do a follow up.
Okay, gotcha. And Kate was wondering too if, and I'm going to paraphrase Kate, but do we know if there's like a consistency with the judge, like through any of this? Like, is this the judge who heard the first case when before they dropped the charges? Was that judge the person who listened, who ruled on the second case? Was that person the person who would have ruled on, yes, you get a search warrant? Like, is there consistency there at all?
I don't think so. I feel like I remember even the judge from the first arrest to the judge in the second arrest and trial. I think those were two different judges, and I don't think it was the same one in 2006 that signed the warrant either. But I'm not. I'll have to get back to you on that.
Okay. That was also a question from Tracy as well. So Chris says, put yourself in Detective Leclerc's shoes. Where do you think the focus of the investigation should have been a year after the crime? Is the implication of this episode that the probable cause is no good? Why? They see her for the first time in weeks with a weird hiking story, and then the next day they talk about a weird paintball story?
Yeah, real quick, Robert's wife B just popped into the chat and said that they were in fact different judges. As far as are they asking if there would have been probable cause without the?
No. I mean, I think Chris is just sort of. I mean, this is obviously somebody who's pushing back. I think they're being defensive of Detective Leclerc, saying, put yourself in his shoes. What do you think the focus should have been a year after the crime, if not these guys, if not this? And then is the implication of the episode that the probable cause is no good? Like, you pointing out the problems with it, do you feel like, throwing the baby out with the bathwater? Is that like, it was good enough?
No, I mean,
it was no good at all.
First of all, there's no implication. I'm just putting out to you what it was and what the problems with it were. But no, I mean, should they have searched Robert and Christian's house? Yep. Should they have got their DNA and fingerprints? Yep. Should they have done it honestly and within the law? Yep. That's my issue. But no, I think all of that. My frustration comes in the fact that he's lying in the probable cause affidavit to get it when I don't think he needed to begin with. I have a compounded issue in the fact that he should have done they should have verified everything they said or attempted to verify or disprove everything they said a year before that. And we may not have been in this position. You know, they pull Robert's bank you know, they never go get the receipts from the AMPM. They're too late to get the surveillance video from that. They eventually pull Robert's bank records, and there's no credit card, debit card charge there, but it's a 99-cent chapstick. You know, there would have been cash. From what we heard from Marty, sounds like he paid him cash and he paid him back for it. So that record wouldn't have been there. They never interviewed Christian's aunt, who they said might have been home that whole time. They never looked for surveillance, but you know, all these things that they should have. You know, they didn't talk to Sarah right afterwards. They didn't talk to Jackie right afterwards. They didn't talk to Marty. All the things they should have done to see if we even needed to be in this position to begin with, to see if their alibis would have been verified back then. But no, I don't. I mean, the implication is there's no implication. The truth is he lied in the probable cause affidavit. And that's what our job is to do, is to show you how this case was built and how they did it. And he lied about it. But again, yeah, they should have checked their DNA and fingerprints. They should have searched their house. They probably should have done it before this, well before this. But that doesn't change the fact that that we don't stand by and let it be okay that law enforcement or prosecutors cheat and lie and cut corners in the system. Do your job and do it right.
And do you know how substantial something needs to be for them to get this? Because I don't feel, seeing the Delphi PCA on the arrest, there was nothing substantial in there. So I can't imagine that you have to have anything crazy substantial to obtain a search warrant.
Probably not. I mean, that's a whole nother discussion. I would disagree that there wasn't much substantial in the Delphi one, but you wouldn't have needed much. I think they could have just pointed out that when Robert said he hadn't talked to her for a while, then the phone records show that he did. The fact that their phones are out of service, and the fact that the cell tower pings seemed to show them going in that direction, and there was a planned, supposedly a planned hike. That probably would have been enough. You're right. It doesn't take a whole lot. Somebody in the chat a while back had said, a little while ago had said, after reading the PCA, it seems like that they could get probable cause on a ham sandwich, which is about right. It doesn't take a whole lot.
Yeah, I forget. I remember finding out what the ham sandwich true history was. Like, they could indict a ham sandwich. I can't remember who said it and under what context, but it's really lasted. And now we're also PCAing a ham sandwich. I appreciate that.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and in terms of the, people responding in the chat that some people think the hiking story is weird, but not the paintball story. Some people don't even think the hiking story is weird. For me, what that brought up and why I wanted to include this was, once again, just understanding, and it brings me back to what you were saying too, Zach, which I loved earlier, where you said, taking it out and listening to it with an open mind and not knowing what Bob is bringing to the table. Of course, it sounds like, really, as they say these days, sus. It definitely seems like, oh shoot, we need to follow up on all of this. That being said, this just reminds me again so much of, like, I totally understand why people hold on to this idea of, like, it's so strange that Robert hadn't talked to Becky, and that suddenly he was supposed to go for a hike and that he didn't somehow go. And it's just, the timing is just too weird. It's very suspicious. I understand that. I truly do. But, like, that's why stuff like this happens. It is. Sometimes it means something, and sometimes it's bad timing. Again, it was like, oh my God, Adnan talked to Hay the night before she was murdered. It's right there in her diary. It's his phone number. They spoke. That's a big deal, and then you add more cell tower evidence where you're like, yes, these people were, these guys were clearly here burying a body. Like, that case is so life-changing for me, in the sense that, because of Undisclosed, it broke down so much. Like, here's how all of this happens. And when you look back on it, you can see how it all went down. And it's been a really good lens for me to understand stuff like this better. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's the same exact story and these guys were set up and they aren't, but it's like, yeah, this is bad. Like, it's really unfortunate that he was going to go on a hike. Bob, I can tell you're reading the chat.
I'm listening to.
I'm just saying, I understand why it feels significant that Robert hadn't seen her in a while, except for he had seen her the night before, but hadn't seen her for a while, and suddenly he's in the picture again, and then she gets killed. I totally get that. For me, that's not enough against everything else that we have weighed. And I just feel like this happens all the time is people
Well,
find themselves in the spotlight and then people are like, yeah, but the business card. And I'm like, I know this sucks. But those things are not, when you weigh them against what we actually know, for me, it crumbles.
well, I think it was Wendell Mass, one of our listeners, said it best that, and he's 100% right. Were it not for strange coincidences, there wouldn't be any wrongful convictions.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, the whole reason Ednon or in any of these cases, Ed that we've covered, that Jesse, all of them, there was a weird coincidence is the whole reason that the wrongful, like if there wasn't, if it was just that they had never made plans to go on the hike, then they wouldn't even be suspects. There'd be nothing connecting them at all to this, and like that coincidences would brought them in, and so you have like that, and then yeah, the business card is out there. Like I agree, like I totally get why they were looked at, but when you start digging into the evidence and everything starts crumbling apart, someone along the line should have been like, okay, we're barking up the wrong tree, and they just never did.
Right. Okay. I want to just move on to some sort of general stuff. Teresa just throwing out the Brandon Kugler Harrison request again, the audio or the transcript.
Yes. So I'm going to put that out for all of you guys listening to this. Well, if you listen to this on Friday, then you'll hear this Friday. And if you're in the YouTube chat right now, you'll know. I'm just going to I've got the actual interview edited, redacted, ready to go up. I just have to record an intro for it. And it's just been a hectic couple of weeks. I'm just going to put it out without an intro. So I'll put it out as a bonus today, Wednesday. So if you're listening to this on Friday, Wednesday, it's out there without me doing any intro for it. It's just going to be out there for you to listen to the later Brandon episode or interview.
Okay, cool. I just wanted to shout out Judith, who brings back, as Judith says, somebody mentioned neighborhood issue. And I actually don't know if that's a reference to other posts in Facebook or if that came up in one of the recent episodes or even just in this last episode. It didn't ring a bell for me. But Judith says, I agree. But we have really never heard the neighbors being closely looked at apart from initial witnesses, etc. So I think Judith just sort of representing that some folks just feel an absence of information about the community, about who was looked into up there, about who everyone was, what their backgrounds were, just in terms of like proximity. Did that get fully exhausted?
No, and even and we're going to get into this when we get an alternate suspect, but there was a lot going on up there just that day. And
Right.
it's very clear there were to me their blinders were on. I think Leclerc initially thought had to be Javier, and once he figured out the phone records cleared Javier, then it must be Robert, and there was just never, I don't think there was ever serious thought given to the fact that it could have had that Becky had nothing to do with this, that Becky wasn't the target of this. Becky was collateral damage.
Right. That's pretty much all I have. Is there, can you give us you sort of given us you're starting the closing argument coverage next week. Is that what you said earlier?
This week on Sunday, we're going to cover
on Sunday. Sorry.
So I went through it's a weird length. So the state closing arguments are 39 pages long. And originally I thought I'm just going to read the closing argument so you can hear every word. It's too long for that. It'll take me too long to read all that. So I'm going to break it down. And then but then you have, Dolan gives closing, and then Moore gives closing, and then the state gives a rebuttal. And I just, Dolan's closing is even longer than the state's closing. And so I'm just going to, this week will be the state's closing argument. And then next week we'll get into the defense closing argument, and then we'll do the rebuttal. And then we'll have Nicole on to talk about or to have her present her case for why she thinks that Robert and Christian are guilty.
Okay.
So all of that's coming up. We're going to get through a piece at a time. If the probable cause affidavit made you mad, wait till you read the closing arguments. And with that, make sure you tune in on Sunday. And unless you guys have anything else, I think we're going to wrap this thing up.
Nope, I'm good.
All
Me
right.
too.
All right. So thanks everybody for tuning in. Make sure you tune in on Sunday, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, guys.
All right. So we can hit stop on our record.
Hey, YouTube. If you guys forgot, we're doing super chats, so
Yeah.
we'll stay on for a few more minutes.
And I
Let
see.
anybody kind of jump on there.
Yep. Well, let's see if any of those want to come in real quick. So you do this super chat and put in whatever your question is. We'll zip through them real quick. I have to pee. So I'm gonna do that real quick while and we come in, and then we'll answer some super chats before we let you guys go. Super
Cool.
duper chats. You guys feel free to answer anything that you see.
Oh, I'll answer everything I see. You won't like any answer though.
I'm going to answer the highlights that aren't real questions that just say things like from GG Quilts, love you guys, wish it were more. GG, that was such an incredibly generous donation. We love you. Don't even wish it were more. That's fantastic. And that might be the only super chat that came in between now and then. I was trying to scroll to the top, but that's as far as it would let me
As far as it'll
scroll.
go. I don't
Isn't
think
that
anything
funny?
before that was anything yeah, that's as far as it'll let me go too. We have a lot of chat in there. That's good though.
Kate, I see your highlight. Great question. Bye, all of you who aren't sticking around.
What's
You
the
are
Adnan news?
awesome.
Because I don't see anything.
Oh, what's the ad? What is there new news on Adnan?
The only thing I see is that he's asking the court to reconsider.
That's the news.
But that doesn't seem like
That's the news.
that's not really. I mean, that's I don't know.
So it's sort of like an
point.
appeal. It's like a please reconsider this. Here are the reasons why you saying that this has to be thrown out is not good enough, kind of.
That's what I guess. We
right.
don't have a lot.
All right, so I went back to the beginning. GG Quilts just says, love you guys, wish it were more.
No, already said that. You know what? Gigi can hear that from you too. Why would I stop you? Yeah, go ahead.
Nice. We got all this chat. Looks like Montana was arguing with somebody for most of the show. And then Kate, NC supplying suiting docs for her guilt. Nicole. I'm guessing is Nicole Carpenter supplying suiting documents for her guilty argument?
Is she supporting documents? Is what I'm imagining.
Supporting documents.
That's what I would have. Yeah.
I imagine. I don't know what she's going to do. I told her that I want to give her the opportunity to present her case, and of course, I'm not really here to debate her. I told her that I'm sure there will be plenty of times where we just agree to disagree, because I do want her to be able to get everything out without me like arguing with her. But I will, push back and call things into question or give my opinion on stuff too. So
I'm really honestly excited to hear what she has to say, and genuinely, I'm not trying to be a douchebag by saying that. I'm genuinely curious to see what she has to say, because I want to see what the other side sees.
Yeah, I do too, and I want to hear what the argument is.
Kathleen. Robert's you
mother,
just made me cry. They've already put so much money into this case. Please don't give us $10. Janet is once again to see the sweetest person on the planet. Kathleen gave a $10 super chat. Says thank you all for reinvestigating this case. I will tell you too, Kathleen, while you're in here, I got my visitation form from Robert in the mail, and I filled it out, sent it back, and he said, before we're done here, I'm gonna read the note that Robert wrote to me. It's amazing to me that when he's in the situation that he's in, that he can be as funny as he is, in his little note that he sent me along with that. But I did send that back. I got mine from Christy, and mine's back out as well. Nice. Jennifer Hill. Oh, I lost it. Where is it? Let me go through here. Jennifer Hill. Bob, will you post the full trial transcript? Yeah, most of it's been out. What I'll do, as we've covered everything, with each episode, we posted the testimony of that person, whoever we were talking about. I think most of that's already out. But when we're done, I'll kind of go through, and anything that any stuff that we missed, I'll go ahead and get that posted too. Daniel Townsend, see you in a month. Zach, maybe Bob. She coming for a tattoo?
People come to see me. People like me, Bob. People like me, Bob.
I don't think Danielle has your initials tattooed or your signature tattooed. I'll call it an autograph tattooed on her arm.
I think I've done better than that.
Yeah.
I mean, I've only tattooed a whole colorful sleeve on her.
Yeah, but
in the start of a second. So.
But I tattooed my autograph on Danielle.
His work is his autograph. Okay, his work is his autograph.
But
so
I guarantee someone has also looked at it
on
and
everyone.
said, "Who?"
Yeah, right. Oh, I'm sure lots of people do. Brittany says, who requested the sector data initially? That was Wills. I need to look if it's in my mind. It's Willis,
saw it a
but I
minute
feel
ago.
like it's Wills.
Wills.
Yeah. Wills is the one that requested it and then copied it to Leclerc. And
What you talking about, Willis?
according to the probable cause affidavit, then discussed what he talked to Joseph Murphy at Verizon about it, and then discussed all of that with Leclerc before he did his probable cause affidavit. And I think that's what Montana was arguing about in there, that there's no proof that he knew that it was sector data. My opinion, that is nonsense. I think that he knew what he was doing, but that's just my opinion. Leanne,
If you just click on it, it goes to it. It looks like.
oh, up top.
I don't know, maybe not all the bigger ones.
Leanne says, can we have some stand-up videos? We put some of them on our social here and there.
Follow me at Z to the Q.
At Z to the Q. I'm at
trying
Bob
to
Rough Truth.
Get that K, and it's not happening.
The problem is
Trying to get that K.
we can't just put out the videos of what we do, because then people know the jokes before they come to the show.
I did get a little influx of followers when you made that weird ass fucking video of me. The
Weird one.
of me singing the Ahoy song.
Oh yeah.
I did get a strange influx of.
Yeah.
That was a weird thing to wake up to, by the way, too.
Caroline says, Kathleen mentioned letters from Robert and Christian, thanking everyone for their help. When will we hear those? Soon, at some point we'll hear those. I'm really hoping to well, we'll talk about it later. I don't want to get too much into that, but we will definitely make sure that whatever they want you to hear from them, that you will hear that from them. Jason says, I got nothing more to say. Just wanted to see my name in the lights. You're in the lights, Jason. $5. Only cost you a smooth $5 to get your name in green.
Look at that one.
Nicole sends $2 just because people like Zach.
There's a team Zach too.
Michelle, $4.99 for more kitten talk. Listen,
Yeah.
I follow
Give
my
us more
socials,
kitten
because as
talk.
soon as those little suckers open their eye and start wandering out of their little hole they're in, I'll definitely be putting
Yeah.
pictures, because I need people to see how cute they are.
Yeah.
So they'll take them out of my
Uh-huh.
garage. Yeah, that becoming.
Maybe you can pass
Yeah.
them off as quail and sell them.
Yeah, just their
Put a
eggs
little-
though.
put some
I'll
feathers
sell
on 'em.
I'll
Kitten
sell kitten
eggs?
eggs. Yeah,
There you go.
Yeah.
I like a
There
kitten
you
eggs.
go.
All right, and if we don't have any more super chats, thank you guys all so much. We appreciate the support. Hopefully this is a fun little thing that we can do at the end, where we
Hashtags team Zach.
Team Zach.
Hashtag team Zach.
No, you don't get to you don't get to say it, because it's not in lights. You can't during the super chat section. You don't get to read anyone's nonsense unless they make it glow.
Wow.
Because people like Zach.
Yeah, to redact. So objection. I would like it stricken from the record that Zach said that he read that chat.
Where's it at? Gone now.
Well,
All
we're
right,
going out
everybody.
strong
Yeah.
with a lot of confusion and wandering off of verbally.
There we go. All right, guys, we're gonna go ahead and end this YouTube chat. Thank you guys for joining us. Thank you very much for the super chats. We appreciate it, and we'll see you